All right, we're going to talk about a good movie now. A genuinely, we sort of teased it last week. Corey got to see it before me because he
Yes.
lives in New York City and I live in the nation's capital. And for some reason, nobody cares about the nation's capital. We're not even a state.
Nope.
Um,
Haha.
yeah, sucks to suck. I
Sucks.
guess everything, everywhere, all at once. This is the Daniels film. Would you call this more a fantasy movie or more a martial arts movie? I know it's basically both, but
I think more fantasy.
okay.
I wouldn't necessarily call it like a martial. I mean, there's definitely a lot of martial arts in it, but I don't call it like a.
It did have shout out to Ki Hu Kwan, who has one of my favorite martial arts scenes of all time, the fanny pack scene.
So fucking
Absolutely
good.
amazing.
The way that they use first of all the martial arts comedy. It's like I haven't seen this done as well. I think this might be better in my mind than Kung Fu Hustle. The way they did their
I haven't seen
Kung
Kung Fu
Fu.
Hustle in years, so I the one for me, and I even back in the day, I always liked Shaolin Soccer more. Shaolin Soccer was my favorite of those.
I think
those
Shaolin
movies.
Soccer is better than for like between those two. I can't remember the director's name off the top of my head, but I think
It's,
between the two
Stephen,
of them,
Stephen Chow.
there it is. But yeah, the fanny pack scene was amazing. I love the stairway. I mean, good stairway fight anywhere, but the butt plug scene was like one of. This movie is
It's one of the best shots ever of all time. The guy like
yes.
two
How many
two
people-
hand knees to his chest jumping to because the other thing is it's like Chekhov's butt plug. You see the trophies
Immediately.
30 minutes earlier in the movie, and you're like, well, those are butt plugs. We're not going to
That's
talk about how those
weird.
are definitely butt plugs. And and then the movie goes on, and you forget about it. Like at least I did. I was like, oh yeah.
I forgot about
And
it. I mean, there was so much. Jay, I couldn't.
So
there
much
was
other
way
shit.
too much shit happening in other places, and I could think about that. This was like, this was after the reveal that the daughter is also this god character too. So there's a lot of shit going on.
Is this
Then you-
after the everything bagel or before the everything bagel?
This is before the donut, the bagel.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry.
So
I'm
we
getting
haven't
my-
watched
getting
peak insanity yet, at least at this point in the movie.
the donut metaphor is still stuck in my mind from Knives Out 2 years ago. So I just got to like bagels and things with holes in the middle of them used to encompass the universe is a common theme I think apparent recently.
Yeah.
But
Well, also, I honestly don't
Jay,
want to.
Jay, we are just sounding like insane people because we have not talked about the movie at all yet. But
Insane movie. I don't
Everything
talk about
Everywhere
it.
All at Once is a sci-fi martial arts film by the Daniels, directors of Swiss Army Man. The movie is, if you could not tell from already, guys, it is batshit insane. How big was how many people were at your screening, Jay?
It was packed. It was full. It was a
Fucking-
sold out show.
I thought it being packed was one of like it helped the film so much. Just reacting to some of those scenes, like the real like we mentioned before in the butt plug scene, the realization the audience everyone had of what was happening, the slow dawn on it was one of the greatest like cinematic like experiences that I've ever experienced. You know what the bullshit is? If they bring like that bullshit Oscar cheer moment shit again, that needs to be that needs to be nominated. Cause that was amazing.
Yeah,
They won't.
that was
They
up
will
there.
not.
They won't do it. They won't do it. That was up there. I will say, the only problem I had with and this I saw this at the Alamo, so very very good crowd, nobody talking or anything. And this isn't her fault. I mean, it's an uncontrollable reaction. But the woman next to me basically cried for the last like 30 minutes of this movie. I was like, she was doing her best. She was like crying and trying to be really quiet. But obviously, she's literally right next to me. I'm like, this movie is like this part, basically the end of the movie, it becomes a mother-daughter movie, and there are some emotional scenes. But she's also, because of how the movie's cut, she's also crying during the scene where
the
she's like
raccoon.
getting run by the guy. So I'm like, you gotta put yourself together, lady.
I gotta say, I think I called myself being really emotional, and it was just the hard cut to the raccoon thing. I'm like, it's like they do. I don't know how they did it to make it so like and work so well though, where it was just like cut between like dramatic scene, and then you're going to the weird throwaway line about Ratatouille being mispronounced about a raccoon, and then making that an actual.
I can't even remember how she said. Did you say raccoon cooey?
Yeah, I think that's what she kept on saying. That and they're like, "What are you saying?" And it was just.
Michelle. First of all, we haven't mentioned her yet, which is
Yes.
a little bit of travesty. Shout out to Michelle Yeoh, who is like tearing it up in this movie.
She's
I
so
think
good.
it is for. I mean, I think this is less a problem in Chinese films, but she has been just tragically misused in American movies. I think even in Shang-Chi, which I love that she was great in. She's like a bit part. She's so fucking good. She could have been in.
I hope they bring her back for the eventual sequel.
I think she will be. I think especially after this. Like,
oh yeah, no, this.
I think this movie's getting a lot of steam among at least film fans. This is a big time movie. She's gonna be in Avatar 2, which if that ever happens,
who gives a fuck? Who cares? I don't care.
I think somebody does.
A lot of people will care, but I don't care.
It's not. Yeah, you're right. I'm not one of them, but somebody does care. I will say so. I think Corey and I have talked about this a little bit, and it was news that I had heard before, but I completely forgot until after seeing the movie. Originally, the character played by Stephanie Sue was supposed to be Awkwafina. I think that's the biggest casting change that happened. It's the one part of this movie that's like sort of stuck in my brain now because I really wish I'd seen Awkwafina in this.
I don't know. I just kind of feel like I like the
Sue is good. She's very good.
I don't know. I kind of feel like I like the I haven't seen her in anything else yet. I think Che and I were talking about that. So I just kind of thought of her as like very like brand new, and I think she just looks a bit.
You have way less baggage with her for sure.
Less baggage. She looks younger than Awkwafina. Not that there's anything wrong with her. I'm just saying based off of like the mother-daughter age difference. At least to me, it seemed like she was like mid-college dropout years and like doing everything you can to like upset your parents.
Shout out to her. She's 30, so she's doing good for herself.
Hey, good for her. Shit, I mean, yeah, no. I'm also gonna show you. I'm like, there's no way her like daughter's gonna like. But obviously, listen. But I kind of thought they just played very well together. I really liked their. But I definitely see how when they were writing this, I could absolutely like, especially the first scene she shows up in the fucking ridiculous costume. Yeah. I think even in my own head, I was just like, I wonder if they asked Awkwafina to do this beforehand. And
it seems like a role written for her, like brand of absurdist comedy for sure. I mean, the dildo scene is like so
very
ridiculous.
Very much
like,
sure.
Yeah.
It's one of those movies I'm like, this was a really sweet movie, but then I'm like, if I was like, I feel like I want to show this to people, but then the scenes like that come in and I'm like, I feel like people are going to think they should not talk to me anymore because there's something wrong with me.
Yeah. I mean, the Daniels you have since when I think we last talked about this, you hadn't seen Swiss Army Man, but you have since seen it.
I have.
The Daniels have a knack for being like.
I like this much better than Swiss Army Man. I don't think we talked about this since I saw it.
You also said this was one of your favorite movies of the last like 5 years.
It might be one of my favorite movies of all time. Honestly, it's up there.
That's big.
It's up there. It is
that's
up there.
Big.
I think it's like in my top 10. I have not stopped talking. It's like kind of the Dune effect in a much stupider direction where I'm like I can't stop thinking about how this movie was made. And like also shout out to the Daniels. I was reading some interviews about them. Apparently, like their stunt crew, they found them on YouTube. A lot of those frames are like, I mean, a lot of the frames, at least to me, I noticed that they are like not mirroring, but they all seem kind of familiar. And if you guys haven't checked out the YouTube series, I should not be plugging other YouTube shows, but every frame a painting, or like I think it's every scene's a painting or something. I don't know which one it is.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like breaking down scene and cinematography work. And they like cited a lot of use from that into bringing this and I got to imagine having Michelle on set was really great. 'Cause, I know I got really obsessed weirdly with like old Jackie Chan movies in the beginning of quarantine for like a weird month I went through. I'm sure longtime listeners have noticed my erratic behavior throughout this podcast. But like it's kind of the way that they like shoot martial arts like films, and that's why they always kind of seem better. It's like they do the double impact kind of thing, and I saw like a lot of like influence based off of that. If you ever seen any old Jackie Chan interviews about his directing techniques, it's really interesting. I would always recommend giving that a watch.
Yeah.
Even though he's not a guy really doing great right now, Jackie, but other than that.
What?
The police pulled this some Chinese blah blah blah.
Oh, I didn't.
Yeah.
I've heard nothing about it. I will say that
he's on Ansel.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. I will say you are obviously higher in this movie than I am. I like this movie a lot. The absurdity for me goes a little bit over the top at times. Just to say to tamper a little bit of, I think the hot dog fingers stuff like
went on
the
for
joke.
A bit too
the
long.
joke ran out for me like maybe 20 minutes into it.
I think the joke ran out for me, and I think that's the one joke I didn't love, but because
it's also like I didn't really get the payoff of it either, where it was like, oh, these two characters.
Why are you making me think about this again? I think I blocked that part from my brain, but please continue.
It's like, well, the payoff is sweet. I like that moment at the end where Jamie Lee Curtis has this moment with Michelle Yeoh at the outside the laundromat, and they like have this really touching moment where they both realize that they are more alike than they realize, and it's paralleled with this parallel universe where they're lesbian lovers with hot dog fingers.
What a sentence.
But I think the payoff for me is not worth the joke. I thought at first when it was like one clip, it's like, oh, there's this alternate universe where we have hot dog fingers because at the beginning of time, one monkey with hot dog fingers killed another one with a rock, and like that changed the course of humanity forever. Is a really funny joke. Having to go back and like watch her play piano with her feet, and like the mustard scene from The King
part
and
of me,
I.
but I kind of get it. I mean, I get what they were trying to say with the scene, with the whole like we adapt and we like shit happens and we just got to kind of deal with it, basically. Did I want to see the disgusting hot dog finger thing over and over again? Absolutely.
I think it's the noise that killed me. Like every time they really have to put the Foley artist to that much work. Every time they move their hands, you get the it's so gross.
See, it's like I think watching Sir Army Man and then kind of like thinking about that scene again, I'm like, that makes sense. This makes sense. Doing this back and forth, this makes a lot of sense. I also did really like the scene where the alternate reality where she's like a movie star, and her scene with, I forget the actor's name, I forget her husband's character.
Oh, Ki Hu Kwan.
Yes, thank you. I'm happy. I liked him a lot in this film, and like someone who grew up on the Goonies, I'm very happy that he's like doing.
I'm glad he got some moments, especially in that timeline, to like really act. Like he wasn't just doing some pretty sick martial arts, which was really cool, but it wasn't even just doing the like silly buffoonish character that he is in the other timelines. And that one, he's like. Is that really where they're sitting outside and talking outside of the Chinese theater? I think it's supposed to be the Chinese theater.
I think so.
And they're like having a cigarette together.
Was it in China or was it?
Oh, it might be. It might have been.
I think it might have been in China.
Because that's right. In that timeline, she doesn't go with him to America. So yeah, of course, there's.
But I think his delivery, the whole like, I would have like. It would have been nice if I did the whole, like, if we just, like, did taxes and shit like that. I don't know why. It was just he brought a very, like, a sense of, like, just, and I mean, like, with all these films, and it always kind of does sound very, like, it can, like, saying it out loud sounds kind of preachy and bullshit, but the whole, like, love is important and all that stuff like that. But I think his performance was so, like, it felt so genuine that it was like, and I can believe all the, like, the stuff you're spitting right now.
It's definitely the thesis of this movie is like love transcends all in a way that is much better executed than like Interstellar, which I think is my least favorite version of that ever. I think this does really land the family payoff because you have these three characters that are at the beginning of this movie quite
separate.
So yeah, they have like the big rift in their family, and it's not subtle. It's not the point of it to be subtle. But underneath the underlying plot of this movie, through the everything bagel and the butt plug and scenes and the alternate realities and the reality where they're both rocks that know everything.
I love that rock scene. I fucking love that rock scene.
When it turns around and has the googly eyes.
This is really, so silly. It's just
underneath all of that is this thing that like, no matter what. Like in this version of they say this is the version of Evelyn Wong who is the biggest failure. Like she has tried a million things and failed at all of them, but this is still the best Evelyn Wong because she has this family that really loves her and cares for her, and she's got this daughter. Like this is the one reality where her daughter didn't become whatever the fuck that thing was supposed to be, time god.
I read a book that was basically did a non-absurdist version of this idea called the Midnight Library, where I don't want to spoil anything for the book, but it has a very kind of similar message at the end of it. If anybody wants to read it, I don't want to recommend it. I think it's an okay book, whatever. So, but like a very similar message, but like I just with the way they were able to like deliver the whole like take a step back, look at what's important, basically, and all that other shit like that. It comes across so much better in this, which is saying something because this is the hot dog movie. But it's just like the way that they were able to like do it, and I love her like breakdown at the very end of it, and like the kind of semi-fight scene between her and her daughter. It was just good. I don't know. It was just really good. And I mean, like she didn't actually go back to her real universe because she would be in jail, but she's in, I guess, the secondary universe. That's pretty much the same exact thing.
Yeah. I'm obviously, like I said, we differ a little bit on how much we love this movie, but I do love this movie. I thought this was fantastic, and I think I had it where I'm looking at my list right now. I had this fifth on my most anticipated movies of the year. It's the second one that I've seen so far, and so far they both very much lived up to expectations. I'm very excited for The Northman. Obviously, that's my number one movie of the year.
Is that this weekend?
Yes. No, it's next weekend. It's next weekend.
Okay, just making sure.
I think it's the 22nd.
I gotta go buy my tickets soon if that's the case.
I'm not going open weekend. I can't do that.
Yeah, I know. It's like, no, we do a podcast about movies or anything like that.
First of all, let's be very clear. The Northman is not like it's not like Morbius, where it's like an event where people need to like talk about what happened in the after credit scene or anything.
Let's take a quick break and come back and talk about some TV.
You just sure you don't want to talk about Morbius again? We can go back to Morbius.
Talk about TV. I gotta send an email. Jesus.
Sweet Christmas.